Something in your life is quietly falling apart. But it's not chaos. It's a hidden rescue. Allah is removing what can't survive the version of you that's about to rise. And the reason you're here is because your soul finally got quiet enough to hear Him. This is not random. This is the first sign that the unseen door has already begun to open. Sign 1. The ache in your soul isn't emptiness. It's a divine invitation. You keep calling it pain, this tightness, this sudden rush of emotion in the middle of silence, this heaviness that doesn't seem to have a name, this ache that appears even when nothing is wrong. You smile in front of people, but deep down your chest feels like it's carrying something it was never meant to hold. You try to distract yourself, scroll it away, work it away, pray it away, but not from the heart, from fear. But here's the truth. What you're feeling is not random. It's not weakness. It's not because you failed. It's a call. Not a loud one, not a clear one, but a sacred one. It's Allah pulling you closer. Without a single word, He's not yelling at you. He's not punishing you. He's softly shaking your soul awake. That ache you feel in your soul, that tightness in your heart, that sudden urge to cry even when everything looks fine on the outside. It's not because you're broken. It's because you're being broken open. You've been living inside a version of yourself that was built to survive, to please people, to be accepted, to avoid being abandoned again. But Allah didn't create you to just survive. You were created to transform, to grow, to rise beyond the limits this world placed on you. And when the version of you that served your past can no longer carry the weight of what's coming next, Allah begins the sacred process of removing it. Not all at once, but gently, through signs that feel like sadness, through silence that feels like distance, through pain that feels like punishment, but is actually purification. You see, Allah never wastes a tear, never wastes an ache, never wastes the moment you fall apart in your room and whisper, "I don't know what's happening to me," because He knows. He knows that the life around you may look fine, but the life inside you has been whispering for help. He knows you've been trying to keep it together for everyone, but He didn't design you to hold the weight of the world. He designed you to hold the weight of a soul connected to Him. And so, when you stop listening to the voice of your soul, He allows the ache to grow, not to destroy you, but to guide you. Because pain is not always an enemy. Sometimes it's the only voice we listen to. Sometimes it's the only thing loud enough to lead us back to our Lord. So when you feel that ache, that confusion, that sadness, that longing that nothing in this world can seem to touch, it's not emptiness. It's space being made, space in your heart, so Allah can plant something new inside it. You're not being torn apart, you're being cleared out, cleansed, so that what's divine can finally enter. But you must stop running from it. Stop asking, "Why do I feel like this?" and instead ask, "What is Allah trying to show me?" Sit with your sadness. Sit with your loneliness. Sit with your ache, not to suffer but to understand. Because the ache is a map. It's leading you back to the moment you stopped pretending you were fine. It's leading you back to the moment you finally say, "Ya Allah, I need you." And that is when the door opens, not the one out there, but the one inside you. The one Allah has been waiting to open. The one that leads to healing, to peace, to something real. You didn't come this far to stay stuck in pain. You came this far because your soul was strong enough to feel it, to not ignore it, and to finally let it guide you to where Allah needs you next. This is not the end of you. This is the beginning of you, the real you, the one Allah knew all along, and the one He's been slowly, lovingly waking up. So next time you feel the ache, don't run, don't numb it, don't cover it up. Just say, "Ya Allah, I hear you." Even if I don't understand it yet, I trust that this ache is you bringing me back to life. Sign 2. Every door that closed whispered, "Not this, I'm saving you." You begged for it to stay. You made dua with trembling hands, hoping that this time Allah would let it remain. You tried to fix it. You tried to hold on. You tried to be patient. But the more you reached out, the more it slipped through your fingers. And eventually, it closed. The door, the connection, the relationship, the opportunity, gone, just like that. And in that silence, you didn't just feel rejected. You felt forgotten, left behind, invisible. You kept asking, "Ya Allah, why didn't you let it work? What did I do wrong? Why do you always take things away when I finally start to believe it's my turn?" But maybe you didn't do anything wrong. Maybe it was never supposed to work. Maybe it was mercy disguised as loss. Maybe Allah closed that door, not to deny you, but to save you. Because what you called your answer was actually a test. What you saw as your future was actually a distraction, and what you thought would complete you was something that would have eventually broken you. But you couldn't see that in the moment, and you weren't supposed to, because Allah sees the poison in the things we crave. He sees the collapse behind the smiles. He sees the heartbreak hiding behind your version of happily ever after. And so, with love deeper than your understanding, He intervenes. He removes it. He lets it fall apart. And it hurts. Yes, it hurts in a way only you and Allah know, but He still does it. Why? Because His plan isn't to give you a life that looks perfect. It's to give you a life that protects your soul, even if that means breaking your heart in the process. So that door you keep staring at, the one you still check sometimes, the one you wish would reopen just one more time, that door didn't close because Allah was angry. It closed because He was most merciful. It's easy to love Allah when He gives, but real faith is proven when He takes, and when you realize that what He took wasn't a loss, but a shield, you'll stop mourning the door. And you'll start thanking Him for not letting you walk into a fire you mistook for light. Think about it. How many times did you cry over something only to realize months later that it would have destroyed you? How many times did you think Allah was silent, when in reality He was protecting you behind the scenes in a way your du'as couldn't even word? That person who left, they weren't meant to know the version of you that's coming. That job that didn't happen, it would have pulled you away from your real purpose. That plan you loved, it was small, and Allah never writes small stories for big souls. So yes, He closed the door, but He didn't close every door. He closed that one dash, so you would stop forcing yourself into rooms that were too small for what your heart was made for, and in time, you'll see it. You'll look back and say, "Ya Allah, thank you for not giving me what I was so desperate to receive, because you gave me better. Not louder, not shinier, but better, because it came with peace. The kind of peace that doesn't ask you to beg, the kind that doesn't confuse you, the kind that doesn't leave you questioning your worth every night, the kind that feels like home, not a test. So if something walked away, if a door shut, if a dream died, don't chase it. Don't reopen what Allah closed out of love for you. Say Alhamdulillah, not just with your tongue, but with your trust. Because even though it broke your heart, that closed door was the beginning of your protection. Sign 3. Your isolation wasn't abandonment. It was sacred alignment. They stopped calling. The invitations slowed. The people you once laughed with now scroll past your life like you were never there. The ones you trusted pulled away so quietly, you didn't even realize they were gone until the silence became deafening. And in that silence, a voice inside you whispered, "You're not worth staying for. You're too much. You're not lovable." But that voice, was never from Allah. You've mistaken this isolation for abandonment. But what if it's not? What if this loneliness wasn't a punishment, but a realignment? A hidden mercy dressed in silence. You see, there's a kind of loneliness that doesn't destroy. It builds, it purifies. It pulls you away from noise so you can finally hear what's real. And that's what this season is. You're not being left behind. You're being pulled back. To you, to Allah, to everything you were too distracted to notice when life was full of noise. You didn't even realize it. But the crowd was making you forget your Creator. Their voices were drowning out your own soul, and their approval became louder than your prayer. So Allah, in His mercy, removed the crowd, not out of cruelty, but out of deep love. Because sometimes the only way to realign a soul is to isolate it. That's why you're alone right now. That's why your phone isn't lighting up. That's why the people who said always became never again. Because what's coming next can't be built in noise. It requires stillness. You can't hear divine instructions when you're constantly surrounded by human opinions. And you can't walk the path Allah designed for you while holding on to the hands of those who were never written to finish the journey with you. So He separates you, not forever, but for a while. Long enough for you to finally face yourself. Long enough to realize you were depending on people to do what only Allah could do. Yes, it's hard. It's painful to feel forgotten. It's heartbreaking to watch people move on while you sit in silence. But look closer. Look deeper. What has grown inside you since the silence began? What have you remembered about yourself that you forgot when you were trying to be everything to everyone? What kind of prayers have left your lips in this isolation that never came out when life was easy? This season was never meant to break you. It was meant to bring you back. Back to the version of you that prays with sincerity, that sits with pain and lets it teach, not destroy. That stops needing the world's attention because you finally have Allah's. That's not abandonment. That's sacred alignment. It means you were chosen to walk a path that requires depth, chosen to be real, even if it means being alone, chosen to be refined by fire, not flattered by crowds, because the people Allah removes from your life are never greater than the peace He brings in their absence. And the silence He gives you, it isn't empty. It's full of unseen blessings, invisible angels, quiet transformations. So instead of asking, why is no one here for me? Start whispering, Ya Allah, what are you showing me through this? And you'll begin to see that the loneliness wasn't loneliness at all. It was divine protection, a cocoon, a sacred space where your soul was being realigned with heaven. You don't need everyone to understand you. You just need to understand why Allah pulled you away. And when you do, the silence won't scare you anymore. It'll comfort you, because now you'll know Allah never isolates the heart unless He's about to fill it with something holy. Sign 4. When familiar things suddenly fall apart, heaven is near. Everything seemed fine, not perfect, but stable. You had your routine, your circle, the places you'd go when life got overwhelming, the people you'd call when your chest got heavy, the plans you held on to like lifelines. It wasn't a dream life, but it made sense. It gave you something to hold on to when the world got loud. And then, without warning, it all started breaking. The people you trusted became distant. The things that used to comfort you stopped working. The peace you once felt in certain places turned into a kind of quiet emptiness. Suddenly, everything that once felt safe started falling apart, and you're left staring at the ruins, whispering, "Why now? Why me? What did I do wrong?" But what if you didn't do anything wrong? What if this collapse wasn't a curse, but a sign? A sign that your soul is outgrowing the life you built in survival. a sign that the familiar isn't feeding you anymore. It's keeping you small, a sign that heaven is near. So earth has to shift. Because when Allah wants to take you somewhere higher, He doesn't ask for permission. He starts removing what's weighing you down, even if you call it comfort. You've been asking for peace, for healing, for a deeper connection with Him. But you didn't realize that those prayers would cost you your fake friendships, your false safety nets, your unhealthy patterns, and the life that made you feel seen, but never really saved. Allah is not just the giver, He is also the breaker of illusions, and sometimes the only way He can build a new you is by allowing the life you settled for to fall apart. Because if He didn't shake it, you wouldn't move. If He didn't remove them, you would have kept begging for their love. If He didn't collapse your routine, you would have stayed stuck in a place that was slowly draining your soul. So this fall, it's sacred, it's heavy, but it's holy. It's the moment where Allah strips you of everything you thought you needed, so He can give you what actually fills you. And I know, it feels cruel, it feels lonely. It feels like He's taking and taking and taking, but look closer. Hasn't this collapse made you more real? Hasn't it made your doers more raw? Hasn't it made you return to Him, not from habit but from desperation? That's not destruction, that's construction. You're not being buried, you're being planted. And seeds don't bloom in comfort. They grow in darkness, under pressure, in the unseen. So if everything around you is falling apart, it means something inside you is about to come alive, because Allah doesn't let things break without purpose. He lets things fall so you'll stop holding on to what's temporary and finally reach for what's eternal. He's pulling you out of a life that made sense on paper, but left your soul starving. And the chaos you're feeling, it's the last cry of a life that was too small for your destiny. Let it fall, let it all fall. Because what's falling isn't your life, it's your limits. And when it's done, when the dust finally settles, you'll rise from it with something far greater than stability. You'll rise with clarity, with depth, with a heart that finally knows what it means to belong to Allah. So don't fear the falling. It means the sky is closer than you think. Heaven is near. Sign 5. If your heart feels too heavy to carry, it means you're being rewritten. Your heart feels heavy, heavier than usual, like it's holding stories it can't speak, like there are weights pressing down on your chest. But no one sees them because they're not physical. You carry your smile like armor now. You laugh so people won't ask questions. You say, Alhamdulillah, even when you're quietly wondering if you're allowed to feel this tired. There are days you wake up already drained, and nights when you go to bed hoping tomorrow feels different. But the truth is, you don't know what's wrong anymore. You just know something inside you hurts, deeply, constantly, and maybe no one told you this. But that heaviness is not a sign of failure. It's not weakness. It's not because you're falling behind. It's because your soul is being rewritten. Allah is doing something inside of you, something big, something sacred. And like anything being rebuilt from the inside out, it's painful before it becomes beautiful. You prayed for change. You asked for healing. You begged for peace. But you didn't realize that the journey to those things would pass through heartbreak, confusion, and emotional exhaustion. Because Allah doesn't just improve your life, He transforms your heart, and transformation is not gentle. It's not soft music and peaceful sunsets. It's breaking. It's crying out in sujood at 2 a.m. It's wondering if you're losing your mind, when in reality you're shedding every false belief, every wound, every fear that no longer fits the person you're becoming. You're not just tired, you're molting. You're letting go of the old skin, the one that kept you safe, but also kept you small. Allah is removing the parts of you that were shaped by trauma, by rejection, by years of pretending you were okay, and He's replacing them with something better. But that process, it's not quick and it's never painless. The heaviness you feel, that's your soul expanding. That's your heart stretching to make room for faith. Real faith, not the one that hides behind routine prayers, but the kind that whispers, "Ya Allah, I'm not okay, but I trust you anyway." You're being rewritten, and that means parts of you will feel like they're dying, because they are. The version of you that settled, that feared, that clung to the wrong people, that made yourself small to be loved. She's fading, and what's replacing her is someone stronger, softer, more surrendered, more real. So if you're feeling like your chest is too tight to breathe, if your days blur into nights, if your soul feels like it's holding back a storm, know this: you're not falling apart. You're being rewritten by the one who knows every broken piece of you. And he's not confused about where they belong. Every tear you've cried in silence was part of the ink. Every heartbreak, a new sentence. Every painful lesson, a paragraph that had to be rewritten so your story could rise. You're not done. You're not being erased. You're just in the middle of becoming someone heaven recognizes, someone this dunya could never destroy. So don't curse the heaviness. Don't rush to escape it. Don't numb it with distractions. Sit with it, feel it, let it hurt. Because one day soon, you'll look back on this chapter and say, "This is where Allah rewrote me." And what He writes is always worth the wait. Sign 6. The people you thought you needed became silent, so you'd hear Allah clearly. They were everything to you, the person you told everything to, the one whose name stayed in your du'as, the friend who made you feel safe, the one you were sure would walk with you to the end. But then, the silence came, and it came slowly, like a sunset that didn't ask your permission to leave. One day, the replies got shorter, the calls stopped, the warmth faded. You started noticing you were the only one reaching out. And even then, they no longer reached back. You stared at your phone more than you admitted, watched them move on with their life while yours stood still. And deep inside, something shattered. You didn't just feel hurt, you felt invisible, and it made you wonder, what did I do wrong? Why would Allah take away the only people who made me feel seen? Why does it feel like I'm the only one left behind? But what if that silence wasn't abandonment? What if it was divine? What if the people who faded were never the source of peace, but a temporary comfort Allah used until it was time for you to come closer to Him? You see, Allah knows when your heart becomes too attached to voices other than His. He knows when you've started depending on people more than you're depending on Him, and so, out of mercy, He quiets the world around you, so you have no choice but to finally hear Him. He lets their silence become loud, so His presence can finally be louder. You thought you needed them, but you didn't. What you needed was what they made you feel: safety, love, belonging. And all of those things were never meant to be found in people. They were meant to be found in sujood, in whispered du'as, in the kind of loneliness that leads to closeness with Allah. That's why they left. Not because you were too much, not because you weren't enough, but because Allah loved you too much to let you build your peace on something so temporary. Sometimes Allah removes what you think you need to show you that what you truly needed was already waiting in His presence. He doesn't just test you with pain, He tests you with silence, because silence is where clarity lives. You'll never hear the whispers of your soul when you're surrounded by noise. You'll never hear divine guidance when you're addicted to human validation. So He lets them grow distant. He allows their attention to fade. He closes the doors you kept knocking on, so you'd finally turn your face to the sky and say, "Ya Allah, I thought I needed them, but maybe I just needed you all along." And when you do that, when you finally sit with the silence and stop begging for echoes, you begin to hear something else. You begin to feel Allah's nearness in ways you never did before. You begin to pray differently, not just to be heard, but to be held. Not just out of habit, but out of hunger. You begin to realize that losing people didn't break you. It revealed how much you were leaning on them instead of Him. And in that moment of clarity, you stop asking, why did they leave me? And you start asking, what was Allah trying to show me by letting them go? Because He doesn't take without giving. He doesn't remove without replacing. And He never allows a silence without filling it with something sacred, if you choose to listen. So tonight, if you're feeling forgotten, if you're wondering why your circle got so small, if you're staring at an empty phone screen wishing someone would reach out, remember this: Allah removed their voice so you could finally hear His. Sign 7. You're being pulled away from the world because the world can't hold what Allah is about to place inside you. Lately, everything feels distant. You sit in a room full of people, but your heart feels like it's somewhere else. You try to laugh at the same jokes, go to the same places, have the same conversations, but something inside you feels off. It's like your soul is outgrowing the life you once fit into. The people you used to connect with feel unfamiliar. The distractions that once entertained you now bore you. The ambitions you once chased now feel shallow. And the world, it just feels too small. You try to force yourself to be normal again, to go back to the old rhythm, but you can feel it. You're not the same anymore. And maybe you're scared to admit it. Because if you do, you'll have to face the truth that Allah is pulling you away. Not because you're being punished, not because you're failing, but because what's being planted inside you is too sacred to stay buried in shallow soil. You're not being pushed away from the world. You're being extracted from it. Piece by piece, layer by layer, you're being prepared for something higher. And the world, with all its noise, distraction, and emptiness, can't hold what Allah is placing inside your chest. There is a depth forming in you, a softness wrapped in strength. A light that doesn't shine outward for attention, but inward for truth. And this kind of becoming, it requires separation. You can't awaken while you're still dancing with illusions. You can't carry divine clarity in a heart that's addicted to validation. You can't receive the next version of your purpose while clinging to the comforts of who you used to be. So Allah removes you from certain circles, from certain conversations, from the spaces where you once felt seen. Because being seen isn't the same as being safe. You start feeling like you don't belong anywhere, like no one understands you. And that ache, it gets louder. But let me tell you this truth. You're not meant to fit in right now. You're meant to form. You are being preserved, like something fragile but powerful, like something that needs to be kept in the dark, until it's strong enough to shine without breaking. You're not behind. You're being protected, because what Allah is building inside you, peace, resilience, vision, taqwa, those are not qualities that grow in crowded places. They grow in the wilderness, in quiet nights, in long sujoods where your tears speak louder than your voice. You'll notice it more and more. You'll be around people, but you'll feel disconnected. You'll try to explain your heart, but they won't understand. You'll try to shrink again just to belong, but it will feel suffocating. That's not something wrong with you. That's Allah saying, you don't belong there anymore. I'm preparing you for something greater. And you must trust that. Even when it's lonely, even when it feels like your whole life is disappearing behind you, even when the world becomes quiet and the only sound left is the beating of your own heart, echoing back to the one who created it. You are not lost. You are being refined. You are not broken. You are being preserved. And soon, when the world finally sees you again, they won't recognize you. Because you'll return not as the person who left, but as the person Allah has been forming in silence. So don't rush to belong again. Don't panic because the old world doesn't recognize you. You're not meant to blend in. You're meant to rise. And when you finally do, you'll understand why Allah had to pull you away. Because what He placed inside of you was never meant to be kept small. It was meant to change everything. Sign 8. The moment you stop begging for what left is when Allah unveils what was meant. You kept praying they'd come back. You begged Allah to fix it, to soften their heart, to give you one more chance. You replayed the memories, rewrote the conversations in your head. You told yourself, if I had done this differently, if I had just said that instead, if I had been more or less or something else entirely. You made their absence a reflection of your worth, and you started calling heartbreak a form of failure. But it wasn't. They didn't leave because you were unlovable. They left because Allah needed your hands empty. You see, the reason your soul still aches isn't because they left. It's because you're still holding on, still gripping the past, still asking Allah to return what He gently removed out of mercy. And you wonder why you feel stuck, why nothing moves, why your prayers feel unanswered, why your chest feels full of tears that won't fall. It's because you're still asking for something that Allah already said no to. Not out of anger, not to punish you, but because the space you're trying to fill was meant for something far greater than what you lost. There's a door waiting to open, but it can't. Not until you unclench your fists, because Allah never pours into full hands. He doesn't place the extraordinary into a heart that's still obsessed with what was ordinary. He doesn't show you what was meant until you surrender what was only temporary. And that moment, the moment you fall into sujood, not to beg for their return, but to say, Ya Allah, I trust you, even if I don't understand. That's when it happens. That's when things begin to move. That's when light enters in a way it never could before. That's when Allah replaces the ache with peace. Real peace. Not the numb kind, but the kind that makes you breathe again. The kind that makes your chest feel like a sanctuary, not a battlefield. The kind that doesn't depend on who stays or who goes, but on who never left. You thought healing would come when they returned, but Allah knew it would come when you released them, because if they were written for your journey, they would have stayed. No test would have shaken them. No silence would have scared them. No distance would have removed them. And if they return one day, they'll return whole. Not as a comfort for your loneliness, but as a reward for your surrender. But if they don't, then trust this. Allah didn't allow them to leave without already preparing someone or something far more aligned with your soul's next chapter. And that chapter, it can't begin until you stop rewriting the old one. So breathe, let go, not because they don't matter, but because Allah matters more. Your heart was never meant to be chained to something that had an expiration date. It was meant to rise, to expand, to be filled by what Allah handpicked for you, without confusion, without begging, without breaking. And that unveiling, that divine replacement, that secret your soul was created for, will only appear when you finally whisper, Ya Allah, I let it go. Now show me what was meant. And He will, because He always does. If you've seen even one of these signs in your life lately, then this isn't just a video. This is your awakening. Allah doesn't move randomly. He moves perfectly, with precision, with mercy, and with timing so divine, it only makes sense in hindsight. So tonight, stop asking when, stop asking why. Instead, sit with the silence. Let it heal what noise kept wounding. Let your soul breathe again and whisper back to the one who's been guiding you all along. I don't see the door yet, Ya Allah, but I know now You're opening it, and I'll walk through when you say it's time. What's meant for you doesn't rush. It arrives when your heart finally makes room.